Okay, so before we begin, I just have two quick things to get out of the way first. First, I would like to announce that when this series is over, and yes, I will finish it, I will be making an addendum video. What this means is that I'll be making a video where I look at some of the comments I got about the series and discuss some of the opinions that other people had about characters. If you want your comment in the video, you can either comment on any episode of this series or at me on Twitter. And second, I got tired of using just Danganronpa music in this series, so from here on out I'm going to start using a mix of Danganronpa music and music from other games. Okay, that out of the way, on to the list. Number 40.
I'm Kokichi Oma, the ultimate supreme leader.
Okay, so story time. When I first made this list, I had just finished V3, which meant I didn't really have much time to think about all the characters as much as the characters in the other games. So in a way, me taking 9 months to make part 2 was a blessing in disguise, because it meant that I had more time to think about the V3 cast. And what that means is Kokichi dropped about 15 spots after I realized he was one of the worst things about V3. My main problem is that it feels like they took so many of the things that made Byakuya and Nagito great, combined them, and then ruined them. As I said last time, I plan on making a video one day about V3's many problems, so for now I'm just going to try and focus on some more positive things about Kokichi. Now, first of all, if you do like Kokichi, then I can understand why. He can be funny, and he's a great foil to Shuichi. He really drives home the message about truth and lies, and I would say he's both the best and worst thing about the fourth trial. He's great because of the way he manipulates everyone, and because of all of the emotion he causes. However, he also takes up a bit too much screen time and is a big part of the reason why Miyu, as well as many other characters, don't get enough screen time. So, if I don't like him, then why is he higher than 16 other characters? Well, two reasons. One, I do think he has good moments, and I think he could have been one of the best characters in the series if it weren't for V3's shoddy writing. And two, I don't have too many strong opinions about many of the characters that came before him. Now, if you do like Kokichi, then that's fine, and I can understand why, but for me, he just takes up way too much screen time that should have gone to other characters for the sake of a character that I think is just decent at best. Number 39.
Gonta's name is Gonta Gokuhara. Gonta's talent is ultimate entomologist. Gonta want to become gentleman. Becoming true gentleman, Gonta's goal.
Gonta's alright. I mean, I like him, he's got some good moments, and he's a good boy who just wants to help, and I do like characters like that, but beyond that, he's alright. My favorite part of him is his free time events. The whole story he tells you about trying to become a gentleman to be the best he can for both families is great, and it gives a really good explanation for why he cares so much about being nice. I think my issue is that I'm not a big fan of the way Gonta's intelligence is done. He's really dumb, but he's not very funny, which just made him kind of bland to me. He reminds me of a Seuss from Gravity Falls. Seuss is a very good person who wants the best for everyone, but his lack of intelligence gets in the way of him being able to help a lot of the time. The main difference between Seuss and Gonta is that Seuss is funny. There are definitely things to like about Gonta, and if you really like him, I get it, but for me, I mean, he's alright. Number 38.
I am K1B0, the ultimate robot. But please, address me as Kibo.
I've got mixed feelings about Kibo. On the one hand, he's a fun character and he has some pretty funny moments throughout the game, but on the other hand, he doesn't really get any meaningful development until the final chapter of the game when he goes apeshit. His free time events are decent. He talks about wanting to be more than just a robot and gaining some other talent to set him apart, like singing. These events are fun, but not anything too deep. It's the kind of thing I enjoy, but it didn't really stick with me like other free time events that we'll be getting to later in this video. Now, I am well aware of the fact that, just like Kokichi, Kibo has a massive fan base that will chew me out for putting him this low. And please, if you are a Kibo fan, tell me why, and I will read it and maybe even use it as a talking point in my addendum video. Just, be respectful about it. If you just cuss me out about why my opinion on a fictional robot is wrong, I'm just going to ignore you. Going back to Kibo though, I will say I did get more enjoyment out of him on my second playthrough because I got to try and spot all the foreshadowing around him, which is more than I can say for Samugi. I guess I feel the same about Kibo that I do about Hiro. I don't hate them, but that's mainly because I don't find either of them to be quite interesting enough to really hate or love. They're just okay. Number 37.
am Kirumi Tojo, the ultimate maid. Please let me know if you require my service.
So up to this point, my opinions have ranged from pretty negative to somewhat positive, but it's mostly been a lot of apathy. However, here at number 37 with Kirumi, this is where I start to really like a lot of these characters and will be much more positive, and I'll have a lot more to say. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. In the main story, I really like Kirumi, but I felt that the chapter she was murdered in was a bit lacking. Now, I know it sounds like I just contradicted the thing I said about positivity, but this is where I must talk about her free time events because I feel that this is where she shines the most. In her free time events with Shuichi, she talks about her duties as a maid and the people she worked with in the past. The event also shows some of her more endearing traits, like how she's self-conscious about being referred to as a mother, and her greatest enemy, Cognac, which adds some fun quirks to her that she lacks in the main story. But for me, the best part of her free time events is the way that she tries to help Shuichi realize his potential. This makes me really wish that Kirumi got more screen time in the main story, because this small bit of dialogue is one of my favorite character interactions in all of V3, and if Kaito and Maki weren't Shuichi's partners in the game, I think Kirumi would have filled that role perfectly. Like, imagine this. After Kaede dies, Kirumi sees that Shuichi is depressed, and she decides that it's her job as the ultimate maid to help Shuichi feel better and grow as a person. Kirumi could help Shuichi get past Kaede's death, and Shuichi could help Kirumi act less robotic and be herself more often. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Kaito and Maki, but this is just something I like to think about. Also, the part where Kirumi teases Shuichi about the price of her services is just so great, and hearing her laugh is also great. Also, she has Rosaline hair, so there's that. Number 36.
Let's see. I'm Mahiru Koizumi. I'll be counting on you from now on.
I've noticed that Mahiru is one of the more forgotten characters of DR2, which I do think is understandable, since she does suffer a bit from Leon syndrome. But I've also noticed that despite this, Mahiru still has a very small but very dedicated fan base, which I completely understand because I love Mahiru. In the main story, she serves a great purpose as the second victim. Her conundrum with Fuyuhiko makes perfect sense, and it's heartbreaking to see everything fall apart when Fuyuhiko loses his temper and Peko steps in and kills Mahiru. The whole thing was clearly preventable, but it's not frustrating to watch because you can understand the motives and emotions of all three of them, and it's clear how things got to the point that they did. The game also gives you enough of a reason to care about Mahiru, but she isn't put into the spotlight so much that it's obvious that she's going to die next, like with Ryoma or Sayaka. As for her free time, those were also fantastic. They go into why she became a photographer. She tells you about how her mother was a war photographer. Her mom would show her pictures of people smiling, and that's what made her not only want to take pictures, but also help people so that she could see them smile too. It's a great explanation for why she always acts like a mom towards the entire group. We also get an explanation as to why she's so hard on the boys of the group. Her father was also a lazy deadbeat who left when she was young, which made her trust men less than women. This reason makes sense, and even if she is wrong for judging every man she meets by this standard, you understand why she does it, which makes her far more realistic than Tenko in my eyes, but we'll get to that later. The last thing I want to bring up about Mahiru is the last rank of her free time events. Here, she asks Hajime to take a picture of her because she has never seen a picture of herself. The small interaction between them is just so cute and precious, and I think it's a great way to end her free time events. We also get to see a subtle yet very clear crush that Mahiru has on Hajime. Now, it's not my favorite chip for either of these two, but it's still a really cute and very sweet way to end her free time events. Number 35.
Yo! The name's Akane Owari. Nice to meet ya.
If I had to pick one character to call the most underrated Danganronpa 2 character, I would definitely pick Akane. On the surface, she can seem just kinda like another Hina. They're both dark-skinned, athletic tomboys who are a tad bit dull and both seem completely unaware of the gazes they tend to get because of their bodies, and they both lost a big muscular person in their lives. And I won't deny the similarities, because they do exist, but when you really get into the details of their arcs, you start to see the differences. I think the most notable one is the different ways they deal with losing the person they were closest to. Hina pretty much lost it and tried to get everyone killed to both make up for her mistakes and make everyone else pay. Akane, on the other hand, tried to ignore her emotions, and when Nekomaru first got shot by Monokuma, after her initial shock, she just kept saying that he would be fine and that everyone else was foolish for even worrying about him. I don't even think she at any point even realized that she was sad or angry at all because she's just so out of touch with her emotions. Later on, after Nekomaru returns as Mekamaru, Fuyuhiko tries to talk to her. He tells her that he gets what she's going through because he went through the same thing after Peko died. Akane responds to this with what seems like genuine confusion. She honestly doesn't seem to understand what he's talking about because she's so out of touch with her emotions. We really don't get to see her have any strong feelings until after Nekomaru dies and she finally breaks down during the trial, and even then she's still trying to fight through her sadness because she's so determined to find out who killed him. Now, this whole arc is relatively subtle, and after the emotional gut punch that was Peko's death, I can understand why someone would find Akane's arc quite underwhelming, especially if you're still comparing her to Hina. However, after big and extremely emotional moments like those, I appreciate the fact that we got a more subtle approach to the ex-character loses the person closest to them story that the series likes to use a lot. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love the arcs of characters like Hina, Fuyuhiko, and Maki who go through similar things, but because Akane's arc doesn't put it in your face as much and requires you to read between the lines, it makes her feel a bit more unique in my eyes, and I really like her for that. Number 34.
My name is Mikan Sumiki. From the bottom of my heart, I hope we can get along.
Okay, so first off, I need you all to do me a favor. Please don't tell my boyfriend that I put his favorite character at 35. If he asks, tell him Mikan was number 1. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about the depressed big titty nurse. Mikan is a weird one for me. When I first played through DR2, Mikan was far from my favorite, but I was still extremely interested in her. By the end of the game, she was the character I had done the most free time events with, even though she only survives for half the game. I think that's probably just because I have a massive soft spot for cute shy girls. As of writing this, I'm currently playing through Fire Emblem Three Houses, and Marianne is one of my favorites, and I will always love Hanako from Kawa Shoujo. Also, please play Kawa Shoujo. It's free, and it's my favorite visual novel ever, and it has Lily Sato, who I love more than anything, so please play it, please. Wait, where was I? Ah yeah, Danganronpa. In her free time events, Mikan gives you an interesting, albeit very depressing reason as to why she's a nurse. She was always made fun of and beaten up, so she had to get good at treating her wounds. She also enjoys being a nurse because she likes being able to help injured and sick people who are weaker than she is. She also likes it because it's the only time people listen to her and take her seriously. I also really like her role in the main story. For one, when she was alive, she was very useful in trials because she could do an autopsy on the victim, which was always very useful information. I also really love her role as the third murderer. Now, there are plenty of things to criticize the third trial for. Between Ibuki not getting enough spotlight, and the fact that the murder as it's described is arguably impossible, although I've never really seen an issue with that. What I do love about this trial, though, is Mikan's breakdown at the end. Not only is it really unexpected considering how frail Mikan is throughout the game, but it also makes for fantastic foreshadowing for the twist at the end of the game when we find out that everyone was actually a part of Ultimate Despair. As a whole, Mikan is a bit of a mixed bag for me because I do think there are better shy characters not only in the Danganronpa series but other games as well. But on the other hand, I can't help but really like her because she is still interesting, funny, and sympathetic. Number 33.
My name is Angie Yonaga. I'm the ultimate artist.
I think if you asked me who my least favorite character in V3 was right after I finished the game, I would have said Angie. Now, obviously, that opinion has changed. This is for two reasons. One is the fact that my boyfriend loves Angie, and I guess a little bit of that love rubbed off on me. The other reason is that after finishing the game, I did her free time events. In the main story, she doesn't really make herself very likable. She hosts the magic show where she shows little to no concern for Himiko's safety, and she creates the student council which limited everyone's freedom and was partly responsible for 2 people dying, and she did it all by manipulating people with the vague promise of a Tua's blessing. Honestly, I think she could have made for a more interesting antagonist than Kokichi, but that's a discussion for another day. Her free time events show her motives in a different light though. We learn that on her island she not only wanted to make others happy, but she also just wanted attention. It's even slightly implied that she's fully aware that she can't hear a Tua, and she just says that she can to help others, and also to get a bit of help in return. Now, of course, that doesn't always work out, but it helps to make her a bit more sympathetic. It also helps that her free time events are funny, and gives us a bit more about her talent as the ultimate artist, and I always like learning more about talents. Angie will never be my favorite, but I can at the very least continue to pretend I like her more than I do to make sure my boyfriend still loves me. Number 32.
Oh yes! I'm Tango Chabashira! Yeah! The ultimate Aikido master!
Speaking of characters I pretend to like that my boyfriend likes so that he still loves me, here we have Tenko. Okay, joking aside, I do like Tenko a lot. For the first 2 chapters of E3, I thought Tenko was funny, but not much else. Then when Chapter 3 rolled around, I really started to like her. The way she showed genuine concern for Himiko's safety was great, and the advice she gave Himiko about showing emotion was fantastic, and it did a great job of showing that the affection she has for Himiko is more than just a crush. And then she fucking died! So, because Tenko's best moment in the game happens in the last 2 minutes of her life, we must look to her free time events. Her free time events have some of the funniest dialogue in the series. Every rank had a moment that made me laugh, whether she was throwing Shuichi, realizing her master was a man, or begging Shuichi to get a sex change so that she could shake his hand. There was always something that managed to make me laugh. And honestly, that's why I like Tenko so much. I don't find her quite as interesting as some of the other characters in this part, but she made me laugh so consistently that putting her a few spots higher just felt natural. Now, is that a bad reason for putting her above characters that I would consider to be quote-unquote better? Yeah, probably, but fuck you, it's my list, I can do what I want. Number 31.
Hi! I'm Junko Enoshima. Charmed, I'm sure.
So when I was making this list, I planned on ignoring anything with Danganronpa that isn't a game. That's why I haven't brought up DR3 or any of the mangas or novels. I did this for the sake of keeping things simple. It just meant that as long as you had played all 4 games, you could keep up and you wouldn't need to worry about watching some anime to understand the list of video game characters. However, this does unfortunately mean that Mukuro is quite a bit lower than she would be if I had included Danganronpa if in my decision making when making this list. However, even without anything outside of DR1, I still love Mukuro. In the main story, she's nothing too special. Upon first impression, she was my favorite character, but that was mainly because she just looked like Ann from Persona 5, but with freckles, which, now that I say it out loud, Ann with freckles sounds like the best idea ever, and now I want to commission an artist to make that for me. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. Mukuro may not be much more than a plot device in the main story, but in her free time end, she is amazing. There we get some subtle hints that she may be having second thoughts about her plan with Junko after she becomes friends with Makoto and she realizes maybe friendship and hope are pretty cool and maybe this little twink is on to something. The best moments are when she breaks character and you can tell it's really Mukuro talking to you instead of her Junko act. I don't have much more to say about Mukuro without going into extended universe stuff, but despite that, I still love Mukuro and I think she has a lot to offer even in a game where she dies within the first few hours of the story.